let's talk about the four Beatles and their crucial relationship with the fifth Beatle.
George Martin. Who knows what would have happened without him?
Yep. Let's talk about it. It's an interesting story. We're going to trace this incredible partnership, from its absolute peak.
All the way to the bitter collapse during the White Album and Let It Be.
And then somehow, that stunning reconciliation for Abbey Road, it's quite a journey.
It really is. It shows you that even geniuses need a guide. But it also shows you sometimes have to, fight that guide to find your own voice.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. The golden years, say, from 1962 to 67.
Right. And you look at George Martin's background. He wasn't the obvious choice for a rock and roll band.
Not at all. He was this classically trained producer at EMI. He was known for, comedy records, orchestral stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which, funnily enough, is why he was so perfect for them. The Beatles had all this raw, incredible talent, but they couldn't read a single note of music.
So Martin became their translator, their musical father figure, really. He took these brilliant but kind of messy ideas and gave them structure.
He didn't just record them, he was teaching them. He taught them about song structure, about the importance of the hook.
That melodic part that just grabs you.
That's the one. And he'd suggest key changes, tempo shifts, just fundamental studio craft that they completely soaked up.
And he wasn't just telling them what to do, he was often playing right alongside them.
Oh, absolutely. That's his piano on countless tracks. And the orchestral scores, think about the strings on Eleanor Rigby.
So stark and dramatic.
Or the massive chaotic orchestra on A Day in the Life. That was pure Martin. He was the architect of their sound in so many ways.
And that collaboration really hit its absolute zenith in 1967 with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
That's where it all came together. The brass, the strings, the ambition. It completely changed what a rock album could be. He truly earned that fifth Beatle title.
But, it's strange. That incredible peak, that's also where the cracks started to appear.
It is. The success itself created a new problem. Resentment. And it was sparked by something from the outside.
Yeah, that article in Time magazine right after Sgt. Pepper was released.
That was the one. It called George Martin the Wunderkind and the mastermind behind Sgt. Pepper.
And the band, especially John and Paul, they did not like that one bit.
No. The suggestion that Martin was the genius and they were just sort of, executing his vision, it went over terribly.
It created this whole new struggle, right? This question of who's the genius behind the Beatles.
Exactly. It felt like the media was giving him the credit for their myth, their creation, and would put this huge distance between them.
And just as that was happening, tragedy strikes.
Brian Epstein, their manager, the one person who could mediate all these huge egos, he dies in August of 67.
And his death just created a total power vacuum, complete chaos.
They had no rudder. They launch Apple Corps. They're trying to manage themselves. Relationships are fracturing. And there's no one to keep the peace. Not between them and not between them and Martin.
Which brings us to 1968 and the recording of the White Album.
If Sgt. Pepper was collaboration, this was the Cold War. The whole atmosphere was different.
It really was. And the stories about Martin in the studio during those sessions, they tell you everything.
The famous chocolate and newspaper strike?
Right. He'd been pushed so far to the sidelines that he would just sit in the back of the control room with newspapers and a huge bar of chocolate.
Basically staging a quiet, professional protest. He was waiting to be asked his opinion, but the call rarely came. He was being frozen out.
And you can hear that fragmentation on the album. They were barely a band at that point.
Not in the studio, no. John would be in one studio working on Revolution 9.
And Paul would be in another, totally separate, doing Blackbird with a different engineer.
The numbers are staggering. Only 16 of the 30 tracks on that double album actually have all four of them playing together.
And the tension. It finally boiled over, didn't it? During Obla Da.
Oof, that session. Paul was being a real perfectionist, and Martin, trying to help, offered a suggestion about the vocals.
And Paul just snapped at him right in front of everyone.
He did, and Martin, after weeks of this, he finally lost it. He shouted back, "Then bloody sing it again, I give up."
And he walked out, took a holiday for, 3 weeks, just left.
He did. And John Lennon, I think, was almost happy about it. He told Martin straight up, "We don't want any of your production shit."
They wanted it raw, unproduced. They had to prove they could do it without him.
And the whole environment just became toxic. Jeff Emmerich, their main engineer, he quit. Ringo even left the band for 2 weeks. It was a miserable time.
You'd think that was the bottom, but the Get Back sessions, which became Let It Be, that was even worse.
Oh, way worse. Ringo himself called it the Let It Be nightmare.
They were filming everything for a documentary, which just made everyone tense and on edge.
And Martin, having been burned so badly, just stayed away for a lot of it. He left Glenn Johns to kind of handle things.
And the internal chaos was just off the charts. George Harrison quit for a while.
Yoko Ono was there constantly, which broke this long-standing unwritten rule. And the business arguments, they were happening right there in the studio.
The fight over appointing Alan Klein as their manager? They were trying to get Paul to sign contracts between takes. It was a mess.
Just a soul-crushing experience. By the time they get to that rooftop concert in January '69, you're watching a band that is just exhausted and miserable.
The partnership was basically dead. But then, the most amazing thing happens, an olive branch.
It's an incredible pivot in the story. It's June 1969, and Paul McCartney calls George Martin.
Out of the blue. And he asks him, we're going to make another record. Would you like to produce it?
It was a huge admission, wasn't it? A recognition that their whole DIY, self-managed approach had been a complete failure. They needed him back.
But Martin was smart. He agreed, but with conditions.
Very firm conditions.
Yeah.
He said, only if you let me produce it the way we used to. He demanded total creative control and, most importantly, discipline from everyone, especially John.
And they said yes. They all agreed. They knew they had to go back to what worked.
And Martin said the mood just changed overnight. He later called Abbey Road a very happy record because everyone was finally pulling in the same direction again.
They also had new tools to work with, a brand new mixing console at EMI.
The TG12345, a huge technological leap. It was solid state, not valve, so the sound was so much cleaner, much sharper.
And it had 8-track recording, double what they had before. That gave them so much more flexibility for the complex stuff Martin had in mind.
Which brings us to his masterstroke on that album, the Side 2 medley.
Right. He took all these little bits and pieces of unfinished songs they had lying around.
And he had this vision to weave them all together into one epic 16-minute symphonic piece. He told them to think symphonically.
But that required a compromise, which they hadn't managed in years. John hated the idea.
Hated it. He was a teddy boy, he said. He just wanted straight-ahead rock and roll, not some operatic suite.
So they found this brilliant middle ground. Side 1 would be John-style individual rock songs like Come Together.
And Side 2 would be Paul and Martin's Grand Symphony. It was a return to respecting each other's creative needs. It was perfect.
It's just amazing. And that final session, August 20th, 1969, that was the last time the four of them were ever in a studio together.
So why the big turnaround? What really changed?
I think the failure of Let It Be was just such a harsh lesson. They realized they needed Martin's structure to function. Paul made the call.
And Martin was professional enough to return, but only on his terms. He had to have that authority back.
The White Album was their rebellion. They had to make that messy, self-indulgent record to prove to themselves that their genius was their own.
But Abbey Road proved the bigger truth. Yes, they were geniuses, but they were always greater with George Martin's discipline and vision. He was the essential fifth element.
And the ending is so bittersweet. Abbey Road becomes their best-selling album, a masterpiece.
But just days before it even comes out, John Lennon secretly tells the band he's quitting.
The reconciliation came just in time to make one last brilliant record, but too late to actually save the band.
But they got their great goodbye. Like Paul sings in the end, the last thing they ever recorded together, the love you take is equal to the love you make.
It just shows you, sometimes creative people have to push their mentors away, really forcefully, to find their own identity.
And once they had proven it to themselves with all that chaos, they could come back together as equals for one last perfect moment. The chocolate and newspapers. That was just the distance they had to travel to get there.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Whenever you feel like knowing more about the Beatles, visit us at BeatlesRewind.com. It's the Beatles, all day, every day, 8 days a week. Cass will do it again tomorrow.
Right. I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Until next time, when you listen.
Your mind conducts its own symphony.